I am writing this post in hopes that someone can tell me they have experienced something similar. I don't know why I care about that. No matter what anyone says, the situation will be the same, and I will still think that I'm losing my mind. Anyway, I hope that everyone will take what I'm saying seriously. I know how it sounds. If I were reading this on some random video on YouTube, I would be skeptical as well. But take everything I say seriously, for everything I'm about to say is 100% true. I go to college at the University of Maine. I'm currently going to grad school there, trying to get a PhD in surface science. I'm very passionate about science, and mainly computers. My first computer was at IBM, an old thing that was revolutionary for the time that left my 11-year-old mind mazed. In '95, I was really into playing Doom and Wolfenstein 3D. When I got home from school, my mum and dad never really got mad at me because they were always at work. So no one really told me to stop playing these violent games. My love for these games continued through the 90s, but really peaked at the beginning of 1996. I was a typical 90s kid, obsessed with Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, fanny packs, Mullet, classic horror movies, and even for a stint of time, I had a Tamagotchi. With coming of school in the fall of '96 came the sadness of not being able to play video games every day like I did in the summer. However, school did bring the joy of friends. At lunch and sometimes in class we would talk about games and new releases that would be coming out soon. Back then, we didn't have websites dedicated to video game news. Instead, my friend group relied on Jeff, one of the more wealthy kids in our group, who was subscribed to a video game magazine company that sent out an issue once a month. One on the last day of August, Jeff brought the latest issue to school. All of us crowded around the lunch table to catch a glimpse at the new system that was coming out next month, the Nintendo 64. We were all begging our parents that night to help us with money to get the system. The N64 was an amazing system. He had 4 megabytes of RAM that could handle 3D graphics like none other before. I had saved a little money from mowing lawns in the summer, but it was not enough to buy the console come September 29th of that year. I was disappointed, and I cried to my parents to help me out just this once to buy this great piece of technology. But my family was struggling at the time, and me being the understanding and caring child just piped down. A couple of hard months passed, and with them came many complaints and jeering from my friend group because I had still not received the system. It had been a difficult time for me. My parents were fighting and I just wanted an escape. I would have given anything for that damn console. I hated going to school and hearing all my friends show off their high scores in the newest games, and hearing about them finding secret glitches in the newest installment of their favourite games. Months after the initial release in September, November rolled around. Not exactly my favourite type of year. I don't like the transition from the pretty orange and yellow fall leaves into roads covered in slick ice and disgusting dark large piles of snow in parking lots with dirt in them. However, there was one thing that is worth my time during that dreaded month. My birthday. 12 years old. Birthdays never really made much sense to me. It is just a celebration of the day someone was born. That is based off the man-made unit of time that is acknowledged into years. Anyways, I hadn't been really looking forward to this birthday because I knew it wasn't going to bring around much. Like I said before, my parents had been fighting and I didn't really expect them to bring me to get anything from either of them, because they had been so busy with work and putting up with each other. That is why I was very, very excited to learn on the 19th of that month in 1996 that I was getting $250 for my birthday. I came home that night after school to find a letter from my mum, who had always been the most caring of the two. "Hi honey, I hope you enjoyed your birthday today. The big one too. Congrats. Anywho, your father and I, as you know, have been going through disagreements lately. We were alerted today that there was this program for couples that have been having similar disagreements. we both agreed that we should look into this. And we both fell in love with the idea. Isn't that great, baby? Anywho, the only problem with this is that we were made aware of this a little short notice, so we had to drive south today so we can be there by tomorrow, Wednesday. The program is going to last a week. I knew that you were our understanding and kind little boy, so I thought we would be okay to leave you alone until next Tuesday. That will give you the rest of the week and the weekend to yourself. To make up for this, me and your father decided to give you a little spending money so you can get yourself whatever little toy you want. We do have some food in the pantry, but I do want some of that food to go towards food for yourself. Enjoy your weekend. See you Tuesday. Love you. I didn't know whether to be excited about this freedom or disappointed at my parents for leaving me on my 12th birthday. Either way, I had more than $200 to spend on whatever I wanted to my puny 12-year-old brain. This was like a god amount of money. And I knew exactly what it was going towards right away. I'm sure by now you can assume exactly what I wanted. I took the money out of the envelope, threw on my wine windbreaker and my old Pro Wings, and hopped on my old red bike I named Silver, and started to head east past Dad's pharmacy, past the school, past Jeff's house. I didn't really look towards his house. He hadn't been in school that week. I skidded to a stop in front of the Finger Gym, or local game store. I parked my bike right next to the big window in front of the store and started to waltz in. I really liked the store, and it felt good going in knowing that I was finally able to actually get something instead of just glancing around while my friends debated on what new game they should get or what Magic the Gathering card they should sell. I did a quick look around the store, eyeing on the older NES and Super NES, making my way towards my prized jewel, the Nintendo 64. I finally put my hands on the box that I've been waiting to touch for a quarter of the year. I held it up to the light so I could read the line under the name, The Fun Machine. Damn right it is. I ran my fingers over the smooth cardboard cover as I started to walk towards the counter. The kid working at the counter laid down a cigarette in the ashtray that was next to his Rubik's Cube. Now that I think of it, that probably wasn't a cigarette. I just assumed it was because I was still a small middle schooler that had a lot to learn. When I got up to the counter, he asked, "Is that all?" Crap! I forgot to get in a game. I responded with a quick no and started to look behind him at the selections of games. Most of the ones that were back there were meant for Super NES. Makes sense. The Nintendo 64 had been very popular in America, so of course all the games would be sold out. I spoke after glancing around a bit more, desperately trying to find a game. Do you have any N64 games in the back? The boy took another drag and blew smoke in my face. I don't know. Well, could you go back and check for me? Please? Jesus, kid, fine. He got off of his stool and started towards the back. He pushed the curtain out of his way and started to search. I looked around the store at the plentiful gaming posters and walls lined with board games and models of popular TV action heroes. The boy returned after less than a minute with a cartridge in his hand. We only have one left, it looks like. He started to hand it over, but then he pulled it back towards him. Ah, wait here a second. What do we have here? He turned the cartridge over to reveal its face, only to be covered by a sticky note, say with the words, "Do not, under any circumstances, sell." Now, see here, kid. I've never been much of a rule follower, and this thing has been buried under some crap in the back, so I don't think anyone will be missing this anytime soon. So, he gave me a wide grin to reveal his crooked teeth laid with yellow grime. "I'm willing to strike a deal with you. I will sell you this game for a couple of extra bucks. My boss probably didn't want to sell it because it must be like a limited edition game or something. So I will get you this game, just don't tell nobody, alright kid? Of course my eager little mind didn't care about what was right and what was wrong at that moment. There was an N64 in front of my eyes, for God's sakes. Even with a possible limited edition game. So of course I took the grimy kid on his offer. Even though I knew he was going to pocket those few extra bucks. I walked out the store the same way I came in, excited for what was about to come about. But only this time I was carrying an N64 and a game instead of $250. I put the plastic bag into the wire basket that was in front of my bike. I don't know if I raced home faster than I went to the store initially. The ride home took 5 minutes. I just let the bike drop to the ground after I came to a hard stop. In front of my garage, I pounced up the concrete stairs, leading towards my house. I swung open the door and started to my room. That night, I knew I had a lot of homework, and me being the responsible little boy, I didn't start playing right away. But that didn't stop me from eyeing over the box and open it to save the beautiful system from its cardboard prison. I ran my fingers over the wondrous smooth black console like it was the skin of a newborn baby. I carefully set the console on my dresser and plugged it into my box TV. I read the wire from the infamous M-shaped controller to the port in front of it. I was smiling through all of this, but stopped suddenly when I realised I had forgotten something. I didn't even know what game I had bought. I quickly but carefully set the controller on my bed and removed the cartridge from the bag. I ripped off the sticky note to reveal its true face. In multi-coloured letters reads the words Super Mario 64. I felt like I had won the lottery. It didn't look like any different from my friend's cartridges. So I was a little upset it wasn't a special edition, or nonetheless, I was still pumped and finally got what I'd been waiting for so long. I could not wait for the weekend. Could it come any sooner? The next day in middle school, in typical middle school boy fashion, I showed off my new game to my friends. I rubbed it into the faces of others who were not fortunate enough to get the console or the game yet. I was on top of the world for that day, just because of that stupid video game. My friends were happy for me, of course, and we talked about the game and how long it took to beat. I played with my friends at their house after school and watched them play the game for hours and hours. I didn't want to start to play my copy yet, because it acted like an incentive to me to get through the week. But boy, coming home and seeing it sitting on my dresser and glaring at it in the wee hours of the night was mighty tempting. But nevertheless, I persisted and I managed to make it through the whole week. That Friday, the 22nd of November, I raced home after school to finally play my new game all night. I dropped my bag in front of my house, opened the door, closed it again to lock, threw my jacket and hat, and finally made my way to my sanctuary. I turned on the TV and slipped the grey cartridge into the slot on top of the machine. Damn, what a feeling. I turned on the system and saw the N64 3D logo from a ripple of some liquid I've started to turn, with a little 3D Mario running around it. The game started and I finally started to play. I was already familiar with the castle and the start, so thought I knew what was waiting for me. I made a new save file and started the game, and the camera started to move towards Princess Peach's face. But something was already off. At first I thought I had just bought a knockoff, a fake game. Maybe that's why it wasn't meant to be sold at the beginning. There was meant to be a letter from Princess Peach saying, "Dear Mario, please come to the castle. I baked a cake for you. Yours truly, Princess Toadstool," with a signature Peach under it. But what appeared to me that Friday, next to Peach's face was a letter that read, "Dear Player, you don't know what you're getting into. Turn off your system and now and get help. Yours truly, the previous owner. Okay, that was odd. How had had the previous owner changed the text in the game? Either way, at the time I was too excited to play that the mysterious text didn't faze me at all. I just kept going. I ran up to the castle, walked in and jumped into the first portrait. I watched Mario fall from the sky and ran perfectly on the ground. Toad was waiting there for me to write information about the level. His speech said, "You will die if you continue. Turn off the game or I will kill you." Creepy as hell. But I just thought that some hacker had the game before me and just changed the text because they wanted to scare the kid who had it next. I just kept pressing the main button until the text disappeared and continued. I was reassured when I found that all the gameplay had been the same for all my other friends. I jumped into the level and evaded the mushroom enemies the same way I'd done before. I made my way around the level, collecting spinning red coins and hopping off trees. I shot myself out of the cannon and flew up to the top of the mountain to fight the final boss of that level. After that, I was warped back to the starting area of the castle. I made my way through the next few levels, the water levels, the level in the snow. I kept going until I collected 18 stars. I knew where to go first for my first fight with Bowser. I took Mario to the correct hallway, and of course it wasn't surprising when Mario dropped through the floor, because I had seen it done 1,000 times before. He landed on the rock and a text bubble appeared. "Welcome to hell." Huh? That was something new. It must have been something the hacker had put in to scare me again. I jumped around the level and invaded the flames until I reached the end of my first encounters with Mario's infamous enemy. But when Bowser turned around, something else was different. The large turtle dragon hybrid had eyes that looked like black holes. The entirety of them were black, not a single pixel of white was shown. But I just passed it off and continued. I beat the boss easily and walked back to the castle. But in the corner of the screen, right before the screen transitioned to the castle intro, I saw Bowser get up. He moved away towards the end of the map and shapeshifted into a tall black humanoid figure. The only thing that the new entity that had the resemblance of the original Bowser were the long pointed teeth pouring from his mouth. I was really freaked out at this point, and I was reluctant to get out the map. At first I thought the game had glitched, but for some reason, I was in a part of the castle I shouldn't have been till later in the game. Looking up, for as much as Mario could see, was the endless hallway now. I'm sure some of you know what I'm referring to. You couldn't even access the area without having the right number of stars. Also, those who have played the game know that when you start to walk up the stairs, it seems to go on forever, unless you know the backwards jump glitch, or have the right number of stars, of course. I was excited at this point, because I had forgotten about the strangeness of the game for a brief few minutes. I made it this far in one day. I would have to show my friends, so they would know how good I was and how dedicated I am to the game. The only thing that could make the situation better was if I could actually make it to the top of the staircase. I placed Mario's little foot on the first step and started to ascend. After a minute of still climbing stairs, I was about ready to give up. But then I remembered something. There should be pictures of Bowser on the side of the walls leading to the top, but I haven't seen any. Immediately after I had that thought, I saw an edge of a frame. I jumped up the steps to get there quicker and landed in front of the picture. To my horror, I saw a very familiar image. Sitting on a rock was 6-year-old me, with my old dog who had died, Lassie. I was very shaken up by this. All my other excuses for this strange event held no weight now. This just couldn't be explained in any way. Of course my curiosity got the better of me to continue. I started ascending again, only to find more familiar pictures. I walked past plethora of photos, all of which were me and my family. Not only were the photos themselves familiar, but the order they were hung to similar to the ones leading up the staircase to our second level. Remember, this was very early Saturday morning, around 2 or 3 a.m, so my parents weren't even supposed to be home yet. But I swear I heard something on the steps outside my door. This couldn't be possible. I turned round to look, but was only greeted I've lost it. I'll just start that paragraph again. Remember, this was early morning, around 2 or 3 a.m, so my parents weren't supposed to be home yet. But I swear I heard something the steps outside my door. This couldn't be possible. I turned around to look, but I was only greeted by the darkness outside my room. I looked back towards the screen to continue with playing my game. I started to slowly creep back up the stairs, and while I did that, I heard more noise outside the room. Now, I was scared. I dropped the control and bolted to the door. I grabbed the handle and swung it shut, causing the frame and most of my room to vibrate. I fumbled in the dark with the lock until I heard a click. I pressed my back against the door and let out a deep breath. Mario was still waiting for me. I went back to the game, hoping that it was just my restlessness getting to my mind. I just wanted to keep playing my game. I just wanted my game and my childhood to be normal, just like everyone else's. I turned Mario around and started to creep up the stairs in the game. Luckily, I didn't hear anything on the stairs again. I continued down the stairs, listening to the stairs moan in the game, but not outside my bedroom, thank God. I was wiping the sleep away from my eyes when I put my controller down for a second or two. I removed my hands and stretched for a bit. Letting out a long yawn, I opened my eyes to be greeted with Mario staring back at me. But only now, his eyes were black as Bowser's were. I couldn't take this anymore. I brought the stick on the joypad down so Mario can get away from that damn staircase. He started walking slower than before. His eyes were still dark as night, staring into me. He gradually started to slow down, and I began smashing buttons, trying to get Mario to move just one more inch, but he just stood there. Finally, the character brought up his index finger onto his right hand and shook it back and forward along his head. He then brought the corners of his mouth back towards his ear in a grotesque smile. He opened his mouth to reveal teeth that resembled Bowser's. I was beyond trying to convince myself this wasn't real at this point. Mario turned around and started sprinting up the stairs. Along with the steps in the game, I also heard pouncing sounds outside my room again. I jumped up and went to my bedside. Whatever was outside my room had finally reached the top of the stairs and stopped. I stood in a way for a few seconds, trying to think of what to do. It started to bang on my door, shaking the frame and sent splinters into my side. I crouched and crawled under my bed. I looked up to watch the door. I was shaking. Whatever was out there kept pounding on the door. After about 5 more seconds, it stopped. I removed my hands from in front of my face to see what was going on. I looked left and right and saw nothing. I let it out as a relieved breath. I crawled out a bit more to peek around the corner. I looked at my TV screen to see Mario was looking in the opposite direction in the game, standing still in front of the final door. Mario put his hand on the door and at the same time I heard my door creak a little bit. I was so glad I had locked it. Mario removed his hand and turned to his left to look at one final portrait, and this one I was not familiar with. I've not seen it in the game, nor in my real life. It was a picture of a television set. Mario put his hand on the portrait and it began to ripple like the other portraits previously when going into a new level. When he touched it, my TV began to crickle in static and I could barely make out Mario through the white noise. As he removed his hand, everything went back to normal. He took one final look to his left, stared right into my soul. He opened his mouth and for another one of those smiles. He shoved himself into the portrait. My TV emitted the loudest static noise I've heard. It began to ripple and shake. The screen shattered and sparks flew from the back of the set. I didn't have time to see what was crawling out of his remains. I rolled out from under my bed, started towards the window. I ducked and hit my shoulder against the window. The glass shattered and I flung my body out of my room as the set continued to spark and send drapes ablaze. I hit my roof and tumbled down. The last thing I thought about before rolling off and smashing my head against the concrete sidewalk was the snow. It was the first snowfall of the winter, and I had missed it watching it because I was too distracted in the game. I woke up that Wednesday in the hospital and saw my parents and a nurse next to me. They called me up and everything that went down. The house had caught fire for some unknown reason and was done for. We would be living in a hotel for the next few weeks until we found a place to rent. It was a nice long break. I didn't have to go to school for a while because of Thanksgiving break, and because of my nasty head injury I did of course I had to return to my educational hell about 3 weeks later, right before Christmas break, which I had been looking forward to as well. I had a nice long break. I didn't have to go to school for a while because of Thanksgiving break, and because of my nasty head injury I did, of course, had to return to my educational hell about 3 weeks later, but right of course before Christmas break, which I had been looking forward to as well. I returned and continued throughout my classes with little to no struggle. Teacher was going easy on me. Who would give a kid whose house burned down, sustained a head injury, and whose parents were going through a divorce and stressful hours of homework? Returning to school did bring the joy of company, however. My friends jumped on me with a ton of questions about my home and remembered nothing. I got questions about my game after that. Of course, too, I didn't tell them exactly what happened because I knew they wouldn't believe me. I just gave short and quick answers so they would stop pestering me. And they also brought up Jeff. He had been playing the game down in his basement while his parents were away during the week. Now I don't know if this is true, but the gang told me that Jeff's parents had returned home to find Jeff under the steps leading to the basement, hanging from the cord of his N64 controller. They told me that the police told his folks it wasn't suicide due to head wounds and gouged out eyes, but it hadn't been ruled as murder either because there was no signs of struggle. Jeff's dad told me had sold his N64 and copy of Super Mario 64 to the Finger Gym to get the reminder out of their house.